Hey guys, welcome back. Tisha here, back for our final review for Paradise Season 1. This was called The Man Who Kept Secrets. Some people may say that this was anticlimactic based on what we got for episode 6 and what we got for episode 7. But my opinion is that this episode was designed to make us think. Hats off to everyone involved. This was phenomenal. The actors did their thing. I think I'm going to say it throughout, but I want to make sure that I say that at the top of this because I think it's important that we realize just how much went into this first season. You know, the first is a test. So if they brought all of this for the first, I can't wait to see what comes with the second. This this episode reminds us that the very people who built the city were picked because they do not matter. They were expendable. The writing in this episode is about so much more than this show. If we're truly honest, if we don't make an attempt to rewrite history, it's understood that this country has been built on the backs of others. Some people may not feel that way, but I know what I've been taught over the years and I know what I read. And I know that it is safe to say that the little people are often stepped on while others rise. So for the killer's problem to be that paradise happened at the result of others passing on the backs of others, my mind is blown because I really didn't think about the laborers until the end of the last episode. And I say that because I was having some conversations with my coworker. Hey, Jazz, if you're watching. And one of the things that we spoke about was this. And I hadn't watched this episode. I also had it with my best friend. And I was saying how, I didn't really think about it. But did anybody who helped design this, other than the brilliant minds, the scientists, did anybody else make it to paradise? Because it seems like the people who did the hard work, the people who lost their lives, the people who put themselves at risk, the people who took time away from their families, the people who dedicated all these years to this project were just lost among a number of others. The final episode of Paradise to me was done the right way. Originally, I was saying to myself, like, they should have ended it with episode 7, but I think that this was a good way to like tie everything together. So go ahead and do me a favor and hit the like button as we jump into it. So the final episode begins right where we started, which is a flashback of them coming to the bunker with all the trucks lining up as she speaks to this man who later seems to be the lead architect, saying that she wants him to build her city. Years earlier, when this underground bunker is being carved out by teams of workers, their uniforms have the flower logo on the back of it. That logo was in the library and on the bookmark and at the back of the person that Presley saw that night, right? So we know that seeing the logo down here, it just makes sense. So we meet Trent. Trent is the project manager for Paradise. He too is not important to them, right? They are at a place where the men, based on conversations of them talking about what they're going to do with their money and having ignorant comments like, I'm going to use it to find me a girl with a big butt, shows how oblivious they are to the situation at hand. So Trent ends up becoming friends with this man by the name of Adam. I wish I would have remembered what his actual name is. His name is an African name that Trent tries to pronounce, but a lot of people struggle with it. And he's just appreciative of the fact that Trent was willing to try. So Adam, as we're calling him, is from Western Africa. I personally think that Trent had a thing for Adam. I originally thought that they were just friends, but there was a different type of I don't know, look that I felt like they gave each other. Maybe it's because they became best friends, I'm not sure. But the two of them become friends. Adam has family overseas in West Africa. Adam is happy to be here because he's able to make money and send it back home. I completely understand this. I know what the American dollar is and how beneficial it is to my family that is in Jamaica. I understand how much more can be done with it. So when he was saying that, I was like, yeah, okay, I get it. Adam is eating his lunch and Trent is eating his, and he has a sandwich where Adam has prepared an actual meal. I'm believing that is fufu based on how he broke it off and stuff, but he shares his food with Trent, and we see what looks like a beautiful friendship developing with not just Trent and Adam, but with all of the fellow workers. They become close after all their working in close proximity with each other on this project for all these years. So they're playing spades and they're eating and they're laughing. And Trent even goes as far as going to several markets, international markets, in order to find one of the drinks that he believes that his friend Adam will enjoy. It's from his homeland. So he brings it to him, and you can see how excited Adam is to have a friend that is looking after him like this. They care for one another. Whether it's platonic or not, either way, these two men have developed a friendship. So all seems to be going well. Until one day, Trent is observing some of his workers as they're getting sick, like they're coughing up things, they're bent over, they're struggling. And the moment that I saw that, I realized that a lot of these men aren't wearing any type of protective gear. The only protective gear they have is the hat that's on their head. We don't see respirators or anything like that. So he's noticing that this guy is really sick. So what Trent does is he takes it upon himself, I guess, to take some samples, and he discovers that they have been exposed to some type of arsenic that is in the walls of what they've been blowing up. He heads to the lead architect, which is the same guy that we saw squirming on the plane, the same guy in episode 1 that Sinatra was talking to, and he tells him his findings, saying that this is deadly in the beginning, but once it's excavated, that the place will be safe. So the architect is like, okay, I hear what you're saying. I'm going to take care of it. What we'll do is we'll have everybody go home for a little bit, and we'll make sure that the place is cleaned up and it's good to go. Right? So it's the next day. Trent comes to work, eager to work, and his badge isn't working. He's stopped at the gate by security as the architect comes out. He is told that his services are no longer needed. He's been fired. That alone makes me know that you all knew that something was up. Because what reason did you have to fire this man? For him, what, making a discovery? You were afraid he was going to say anything? Like, it's not adding up as to why you would get rid of him when all he was trying to do was to make sure that this was a safe environment. So Sinatra isn't worried about OSHA. Sinatra not worried about none of that stuff. It's just about money. And she's willing to sacrifice whoever she has to sacrifice along with the other billionaires in order to do this. Because here's the thing. You can't tell me that they didn't have enough money to help make sure that these gentlemen who were risking their lives were protected. But the little people don't matter when it comes to things like this. So Trent reminds the architect of his discovery and what he said he was going to do. And he assures him that they'll have some protective gear for the people to wear. Yeah, right. So he's pleading with him, saying, please don't have my guys out there. Have them come out. You're fired. And right now, Trent is the type of person that's more concerned about how everyone will be health wise than he is about the fact that he is no longer going to have a paycheck from this place and that he's out of a job. Just goes to show you the type of person he was. So he's yelling and he's like, we both know this isn't a recycling facility. What are we really building here? And the architect gets mad and starts pointing and tells him, like, look, something catastrophic is about to happen here. And at this point, you don't need to be worried about these people because a lot of these guys, basically, he's saying, ain't even gonna make it. So just get out. So he gets out. But he doesn't do the one thing that he really wanted him to do, which is leave it alone. So Trent becomes obsessed with what he has been told, that there's this catastrophic event that is going to happen. So he is calling all the guys, trying to warn them about what's going on. You see some names crossed out. I'm going to assume those are people that he got in contact with, or for all we know, they could be people who were no longer around. We just don't know because it's not really said. He's trying to warn them. He's leaving Adam a bunch of messages and nobody is answering. He's trying to let them know this isn't a recycling center. You are in danger. So he has all of these things around him. He's done all of this research, and at the center of it all is President Cal Bradford. Cal, in his eyes, is to blame for all that has happened, that all that his family has done, which is ironic because we know that he did not want this. Cal wanted to go to a high school classroom and to enjoy literature. Cal did not enjoy going to his family's business. He didn't want to continue that part of the generation in the lineage by continuing to dig for oil. He wanted to mold young minds, but that wasn't good enough for his father. And Cal, too, even though he was privy to some things, there's a lot of things that he didn't know when it came to this. So for this man, he is the reason why his friends are going to be gone. And all the other people of the world are going to be gone, right? So we go from that to the present. We got Sinatra. Sinatra is still playing the recording of Terry searching for her family and saying names and things of that nature. We are reminded of Sinatra suggesting that Xavier check on his daughter. So we see Xavier, and Xavier is in front of Robertson, and he tells Robertson that it's done, that they need to let the VPs go. Sinatra didn't kill Cal, that the DNA found at the crime scene is of an unknown suspect, which means that someone either has snuck down there or they were already there when Paradise opened. So he needs them to stand down, he needs them to return their guns, and he needs to go check the crime scene out again to see what her people miss. Robertson can't understand why Xavier is now taking this approach when he was one of the main people who was trying to figure this thing out. So Robinson yells at him, what the F does she have on you? Because we've seen how various people have flipped and things have gone wrong and all those other things. And he says, my daughter. I said, oh boy, this isn't good. At the diner, we hear the announcement being made that the order has been restored, that they are no longer in danger. We see Sinatra trying to get information on this tablet from the tablet because she needs to know what is what. She needs that stuff erased. She doesn't want it in the wrong hands. We see Jeremy reading to crowds about the tablet. Here's my question about the tablet. Did Jane tell her that he had the tablet? Did they see that the tablet was on? Like, why are you so concerned about erasing things from the tablet now when it has been missing for some time? Like, why now? If you know the answer, put it down below, please. So, the new president is doing his whole little speech, finally admitting that Cal's murder Cal's death may actually be a murder because it's showing that there's foul play. So we're back at Control Center. Sinatra is still freaking out. She, as I said, wants that info wiped away when Gabrielle tells her, you're coming undone. I'm trying to help you here. You're coming undone. And Sinatra looks at her like, lady, you don't know what you're talking about. She basically tells her that I am not who you think I am. I've done terrible things. You're over here trying to save me. At this point, there's no saving me. Gabriella is shook. She can't believe what she's hearing because Xavier tried to warn her about this lady and she wasn't trying to hear it. And now she's hearing firsthand, without even having knowledge to what she's done, that Sinatra has done some really, really bad things. So we're at what I believe is Jane's. And her and Presley are having a junk day. She's talking about the things that she and Billy used to do while Presley is just trying to support her as a friend. She's acting like she's sad, but Jane is very dangerous. Y'all, before I forget to do this, let's talk about Jane. Jane, to me, is the one that we're going to have to watch next season because they don't realize who Jane is. And Jane, in my mind, now that what's transpired has transpired, Jane is at the top of the food chain because Jane knows things that others don't know. And that is dangerous. Sinatra thought she had the upper hand, but Jane took that thing right back, right? So they're having their junk day. Sinatra calls Jane. Jane leaves the room to talk to Sinatra, right? So Sinatra basically is talking about how they're going to handle Presley because she feels like the girl knows too much. She basically is thinking about having something done to Presley to keep the lid on. In other words, do the same thing to Presley that you did to Billy. Jane is all gung-ho for it. Like, you've spent however many nights playing with this little girl, playing the Wii, having times where you eat, seeing her with Billy and all these other things, and you're asked to unalive her, and your response is, okay, no problem, I could do that. I just got a favor to ask of you. I was like, what? So her favor is that she wants to know if she could have the president's video gaming system because she really enjoys the Wii. He has a lot of systems, and out of all of them, you like the Wii. Okay, the Wii is really basic in my opinion, but she likes it, so we're just going to go with it. She likes the Wii. She likes playing tennis. Sinatra is looking like, are you serious? She brushes her off, asking her if she's effing insane. One thing I've learned over time is when you are dealing with someone who may not be altogether there, the last thing you want to do is tell them that they're insane or speak to them in a demeaning way. And that is what Sinatra did. Sinatra saying this messed up things for Sinatra. So Jane's like, oh, okay, that's how you want to talk to me? All right, well, you know what? I think it's best that we end this call. And she hangs up. This is when I realized she's not in control of Jane. Jane is now in control of Jane. Jane later texts Sinatra, I handled it, problem eliminated. My stomach dropped because the way Jane is, I was like, what harm did she do to this girl? Then I said, well, maybe she didn't do anything to her because I can't see how that would work in terms of the show and Xavier and down there and all those other things. I think that would cause too many problems, and we're trying to have this show go to another season. But there very much so was a possibility that she did something to this child, and Sinatra was okay with it because everything's okay as long as it's not happening to her and her family. So we go from that to Xavier, who has returned to the scene of the crime. He's at the president's house, standing in Cal's bedroom as he tries to recall what he saw the last night that he was alive, or should I say, not the last night he was alive, the morning that he found him. So as he's going through the room and he's having memories, he finds the mix CD that the president made for Jeremy. He plays it and he hears the voice of who I'm calling his friend. Because although they had their issues, I do feel at some point there was a friendship there. So he hears Cal tell Jeremy, I came down to the library to make you a mixtape and bury a few national secrets while I'm here. Something about that ignites something in Xavier, and he immediately feels like this could be a clue. So we see him head to the library. We see the display, not just this one with the uniform, but various things with drill bits and all these other things that are representation of Paradise and how Paradise got there, which means even more to me now that we know that they died in order to build this place. In the glass case, we see the coveralls with the flower logo on the back, the uniform that they had. Notice there's no mask, no respirator, nothing like that. It's a hat, some gloves, and some coveralls. As he's in there, he's thinking about the things that he saw. Right? He's thinking about that cigarette and recalling the number, and he remembers that Cal wrote down a 6-digit number. So he is looking in the library and he begins to notice the number on the books. And that number with the cigarette is a reference to the Dewey Decimal System. So for those of you who said that you felt like it had to do with that, with the books, you guys were right. I was wrong about the plane. It didn't have nothing to do with the plane. It had everything to do with those books. So I kept feeling like, why do we keep coming back to the library? There's something about the library, something about the library. Well, it's something about the library, right? There's a lot of somethings about the library. So let's get into it. So Xavier follows the numbers to a shelf in the biographies. And first book he sees is Frank Sinatra, right? So he opens it up. There's nothing in there. Right next to it, he sees Peter Lawford's book called The Man Who Kept the Secrets. He opens it and he hits gold, because the notebook that I said no one could find, the notebook that I felt like he wrote all those transcripts in and it was missing, actually wasn't missing. It was left in this book. Cal took the time that day in the library when everybody thought he was this drunk president who was unraveling, who was sitting there listening to music, walking around in his robe. He took the time to transcribe what he heard, took it off the tablet, wrote it on that notebook, and then left all of that information about the mission and about Billy's orders and about Sinatra's part and the survivors and the location and Atlanta. It's all in the book. He doesn't get to celebrate it though. We'll get to it. So Gabrielle is at home drinking because she is realizing that Sinatra is a monster. A woman that she's known for over 10 years is not who she thinks that she is. Robertson basically lets her know, like, look, hey, we don't have time for all of this. I need you to let me in so that we can access these files. And she tries to close the door and Robertson ain't having it. Like, she puts her foot in the door. Robertson is one of my new favorite characters in this series. I still cannot believe how it switched for me. So she tells her we got to access those files because someone that you picked is a killer. Someone that made it past the checkpoint is a killer. So Gabrielle reveals, I didn't evaluate everyone as they came in here, that I have a team that evaluated some of the people as well. So they're looking through the psychiatric evaluations of the arrival day to see if anything stood out or to see if there was any type of flags or anything like that, because she needs to know who is on that list that may cause a problem. So they look over the files. They're looking at people whose bracelets didn't work or people who had an issue when they were talking to a therapist. And as Gabrielle's reading, she makes note of something that would be random to us, but it's important to her. So she sees Maggie's file because Maggie is one of the people who had a problem with her wristband. And there is a note in there about her having a severe nut allergy, which is odd to Gabrielle because to her knowledge, Maggie isn't allergic to anything, especially given what she's seen while being at the diner. So the ladies head to the diner to pay Maggie a visit. Gabrielle does her normal order where she gets some cheese fries that she loves. You know, the cheese fries that she ate with Xavier, the fries that she told us were made from cashews and chemicals, and that's why they were so good. She invites Maggie to take a load off, sit down and, have a bite with me. So she shared them with her. And as they're eating some of them, she says, Maggie does, that she's been eating them all day. So the next thing you know, Robertson is at her side and she has a gun poking in her ribs. Gabrielle explains that the gig is up, that the real the real Maggie is allergic to nuts. And you yourself just said that you've been eating them all day. So how could you possibly be allergic to something and eating them all day? And this is when the imposter says, I'm almost relieved. I deserve everything that happens to me, but just know he made me do it. I said, well, who the hell is he? And that's when we see who he is. He is Eli Davis, the daggone librarian. But Eli isn't really Eli because he too is an imposter. He sees Xavier as he's reading Cal's notes in the book and he hits him in the head with a fire extinguisher, knocking him out. Now, I'm wondering how long he was out because that had to hurt. It had to hurt badly. So he says it after he hits him. He's like, sorry, bud, wrong place, wrong time. And Xavier is sitting on the ground, tied up, and he comes to. And he's looking at him, and he's like, you don't recognize me, do you? And Xavier's like looking at him, trying to figure out, how he would recognize him or how he would know him. And he's like, I always wondered if one of you would. And I said, who is one of you? And then we realized one of you is one of the many Secret Service agents, one of the many people that's down there, because we too have seen him before. And I didn't recognize him either. I didn't recognize him at all. Even going back and looking for the picture of the image, I was like, what in the world? Like, they did a really good job with this. Facial hair really does change things. So does the hair on your head, apparently. So we find out that he is the guy who many episodes ago, I think it was episode 2, he's the man that shot Xavier while aiming at Cal years before. It was him acting like he was a reporter. Now, note that him as a librarian is thinner and bald, and he has a beard and he has glasses. So he took on this persona in order to get into paradise, which is a whole nother story. And at that point, I was shook. So what we find out is that after his attempted assassination of the president, I shouldn't say that. Goodness, they're probably going to flag me. We'll see. After he tried to do that whole thing to the fake president, let me say that. To the one in La La Land that's a part of this fantasy world, not the real one. Don't flag me, you two. Okay, we find out that after the whole attempt thing, right, that Trent went to prison for this act. While there, he is continuing to call Adam, trying to get in contact with Adam, let Adam know what's going on. And then one day, I believe it's Adam that answers the phone and says, it's too late, I'm dying. I want to know what was said to the gentleman that Adam didn't answer the call. That a lot of them didn't. Okay, I could see that it might be outlandish that this guy is telling you that something bad is going to happen in the world, but I would think that you would at least listen to him when he's telling you that he got fired because you're in danger with the chemicals and stuff that you're breathing in. Like, it could cause you to die. But for whatever reason, they didn't want to listen to him. So right before doomsday, the inmates end up getting into this huge fight. The faculty at the job, the correction officers are taken over, right? The place where he's housed is now being controlled by the inmates, and they are unaliving guards left and right, and people are running free. We see later on that Trent helped himself to one of the guards' uniforms and service weapon, and he uses it to pose as law enforcement, as an official helping to manage the chaos as people are headed to paradise in their cars. Traffic is at a standstill. He sees this thing, stops a couple, gets their IDs. The guy's name is Eli. The lady's name is Margaret, last name Davis. I just guess, I'm assuming that he was just looking at people and wondering, who in here can I try to act like I'm like? Who has the most unassuming role that will afford me to be in here without being discovered? And apparently it was the librarian, which then got me to thinking, how exactly did they select who would do what? Because I wonder if my job would be needed in paradise. Because I would think that in order to be in paradise, you would probably have to be the best of the best. If you were serving in certain areas, like, how did you figure out who the teachers were? Who were the educators going to be? Who was running the school? Like, how did you come to these conclusions? Just something that I wonder. If there was a paradise, would Tisha be put in it? I don't think so. I think in their eyes, I would be too ordinary. And there's, like, I don't know how many other people who could do what it is that I do. Who knows? But he found this ordinary man and his wife, and he told them that he could help them. The guy's like, I'm a librarian. Trent says, okay, don't worry, I got you. I'm going to help you get through this faster. I know another way, another arrival area. Let's do. So the driver, that's the real librarian, follows him into this area, and he wastes no time to unalive the both of them. So at this point, we now know he's done this to multiple people. So he heads to a bathroom, and he quickly gets ready to be this person that he's now supposed to be. So he cuts down his beard, he shaves his head to make it look like he has a receding hairline, and then he puts on the clothes that the real Ellis was wearing, and now he's ready to head to paradise. Well, Ellis had a wife, and on his way to paradise, he sees this woman. She is sitting in front of the gas station store, and she's like, I heard that this was the last day on earth, and I decided that I might as well do whatever I want to do. She's upset, she's smoking, and she's eating junk food. So he tells her, you might be the only person in the world right now who's in the right place at the right time, because she is now going to be the new Maggie. So we see them as they arrive into the city. They are at the point where they get screened, and because he unalived the real Eli, he goes, or Mr. Davis, he goes and he cuts off the wristband and uses the wristband to go into the thing, but it's flagged because it's cut off, which means it's not working. He is flustered. He's then like, everybody around me is dying. Everybody's dying. They're all going. And he's acting like he's having a panic attack. She says, do you have your inhaler? Do you need your inhaler? Acting as if it's an asthma attack. Well, between fake Maggie asking about the inhaler and fake Eli, I think that's his name, Mr. Davis, sitting there acting like he's having a panic attack, the lady that is supposed to be scanning them in to make sure nobody who's not in this place is in this place drops the ball. And she tells him, go ahead, both of y'all are through. I wonder if she herself was through. So they're sitting there doing all of that. And just like that, we now know how he got in. So Trent is telling this story as Xavier is still tied up, right? He tells him, I was supposed to finish the job, but then I got here and I got comfortable which is in itself a whole nother story, because how did you manage to get comfortable so quickly being in this dome? What was your life like before? How did you forget your purpose of being there so quickly? Did they make it that comfortable? Did they make it that good for you? He's starting to feel like he deserved to survive and he deserved to live. For everyone who built this place that didn't get invited, he says, I was willing to live out my days down here quietly, sadly, in this library that I loved until, and that was this day, until the day that the president arrived in the library and showed up to make a mixtape. It triggered him. He says, it all came flooding back to me, and I knew I had to finish what I started. It is so sad because there are so many instances, in my opinion, where Cal could have been spared. But the truth is that Trent doesn't have the full story. Trent does have a reason to be upset. He lost his friends, but Cal very much so, like Trent, was puppeted, because there's things that Trent doesn't know. There's things that Cal didn't know. You both put yourself at risk in this situation, and you still don't know who did what and who's really pulling the strings. Because the same way that Trent was discarded, Cal ended up being discarded too. Cal to them was just someone that they could puppet. And look how quickly he was replaced once he was unalived. We then see what actually happened the night that he passed. We're reminded that Robertson just left him after he's telling her that he loves her. Her response to him is, call me when you're sober. We see that his dad just basically called him a puppet, and that Xavier just told him, I'll sleep again better when you're gone. Because he's blaming him for the fact that Terry is gone, when we know now that Terry may possibly still be alive. What a sad way for your last day on earth to be, where every single person that you love, son included, who didn't want to even come over for homemade pasta, when every single person that you love has no desire to have anything to do with you. So we see him as he is outside, supposed to be in a protected space, but the cameras are down. People like Billy are asleep. He's on the balcony. He's smoking his cigarette and he's reading the tablet when Trent comes out of nowhere wearing the uniform that the workers wore. He hits him in the head with the heavy drill bit that was on that case in the library, and he drops the tablet, Cal does, in the bushes below, which is why Presley was able to find it down there. She didn't see anything. She literally just saw the tablet. He then drags him inside of the house and looks at the bloody cow, right? So, oh, there goes the drill bit. I forgot I put that in there. This is what he hit him in the head with. This. And to think this very thing was cleaned up and put back on display. It's just, it's sad. It's sad on so many levels. So he's sitting there and he's looking at the bloody cow. He's thinking that cow is gone. He sits down. He's dazed. He drinks a drink, not realizing that cow is still alive. We witness, as the music is playing in the background, cow on the floor crawling, right? And he grabs a cigarette box, takes the blood from his own head, makes an X on it, and tries to place it back on the table. Y'all, this scene broke my heart. I felt so bad for him. Trent sees that he's still alive, Cal stands up trying to fight, but Trent hits him with that drill bit again. This time he falls face down on the ground and he perishes in that puddle of blood that we saw at the beginning of episode 1. Trent says, "You can let everybody know who did this and why." I don't know if he's saying like that you can let them know that he did it and why he did it, or if he's saying like the president himself is the reason why I did what I did. So he thanks Xavier for finding the book that tells him the way out. He said he knew there was a way out, he just didn't know how to go about doing it. He says that when he gets to the surface, he's going to tell all the survivors who did this. And he leaves as Xavier is pleading for him to please not take the book because he needs to go try to find his wife. After he leaves, Robertson shows up and she unties Xavier. She knows it's the librarian just like he does. She wants to call it in. Xavier tells her, "No, let's not call it in. I know where he's heading." And they pursue him. So they pursue him. They track him down to this area. He's on these catwalk thingies that are around the dome, right? This area has to do with the dome in the sky, right? So he knows that he's caught and he's ready to jump to his death. But before he jumps to his death, he says some important things, right? He says they had a chance to start over down here, to build a better world. Instead, they chose more of the same. Bloated houses for the privileged few. Guns made this place a prison. American effing dream. There are bodies scattered in the dirt down here. People need to know this place is nothing more than a gravesite. Now it will be mine too. Paradise. What a effing joke. And he jumps and falls through this light fixture thing that I believe has something to do with the dome. And we see him falling down what looks from the sky, but it's the top of the dome. This is deep. It's deep because he's right. This place is being called paradise, but there are some people who are given houses and some people who are given apartments and some people who were given great jobs and some people who were given not so great jobs. It's very much so the same way that things have been done before. And for him, he's feeling like the rich still have power while the poor do not. And it's deep. Because a lot of what we see in society today, the difference in socioeconomic classes, the way that something as simple as a repair on a car can be devastating to one person because it sets them back, while for another person it's just, oh, let me hurry up and write this check and fix it. It's so many levels to this. So Xavier returns to Sinatra, right? He lets Sinatra in on what he's found out. He puts his gun down, fills her in. He then says, "Now where the hell is my daughter?" She very matter-of-factly, with no remorse whatsoever, says, I'm sorry, Agent Collins. Her eyes look a little watery, but I don't know if she's crying for herself or she's getting watery for what she did. I think it's more so because she's worried about what's about to happen to herself when she tells him this. She says, I never intended for things to go this far. God forgive me. But you don't mean it, because you did intend for them to go that far. You basically told her that you want her to consider what may have to happen next. You started that ball rolling. Xavier is immediately overtaken with grief, and he is very much so upset, and he bends over looking like he's about to fall to his knees. But what he really does is he bends over and he grabs the service weapon that I'm guessing was probably at his ankle or something. He then uses it and he shoots the two guards that are in the room, and then places the muzzle against her dome. He yells at her while the gun is there. And now we can see emotion. What the F did you do? And then boom. Now, if the first angle, you don't get to see that Jane's right there. But boom. There is a shot. And Sinatra is hit. It looks like it's in her neck region. But it's not by Xavier. It's by Jane. Xavier has no clue who Jane really is or what Jane is, which really is, Jane is a sociopath. Jane is able to report that Presley is safe and that she's being watched by other agents. So we see Xavier run to get back to his family. Jane, who has done this to Sinatra, leans into Sinatra, much like how she leaned over Billy when Billy was dying, proving once again that at the end of the day, she is what Sinatra thought she was and what she claimed to be, which is the baddest bee down there, right? Or mother effer down there. Sinatra is struggling to breathe and she's bleeding, and Jane says, he was going to blow your brains out. But you're no use to me if you're dead. You got a long recovery ahead of you. Probably should have just let me have the we. I said, what? What? Goes back to the game. Probably should have let me have the we. This is bad, which means she probably only didn't do anything to Presley because she was mad at Sinatra and she didn't want to fill Sinatra's request. It wasn't because she felt bad about what may happen to Presley. So we see Xavier as he reunites with the kids, the dog, and Carl, the neighbor, and the friends. They're there, agents and everything are there protecting his kids. So he reunites with the kids and kind of fills his daughter in as he's preparing now to head to the unknown, which is to find Terry and the other survivors. So we get this whole montage as he's doing this with the music playing in the background. We see Jeremy, who has still not been reunited with Presley, but he seems to have found new purpose in fixing what the generations before him have done. We see him as he gathers in the town area, in the park, whatever we're going to call this memorial that he wrote Murdered on, or somebody wrote it on. And his goal is to educate the residents about what happened to his father, as well as the details from the tablet, which reveal the existence of the other survivors that are out there. He is now taking on the cause. Robertson lets Xavier know that even though Sinatra is down there, that she will be the person that watches over his kids while he does what he does, because somebody's going to try to take Sinatra's place. She says, I would die before I ever let anything happen to those kids. And I believe her. So Presley urges her dad to bring her mom home, and we see him heading that way as Jeremy is listening to his father's voice, and the songs that we've been hearing at the end of each episode are a part of the mix, and he is making sure that Jeremy follows his father's charge, which is to make sure that they fix it. If you don't like this world I built, he says, fix it. We see Jane as she plays tennis on her Wii. We see Sinatra in a hospital bed with her daughter watching her as machines are hooked up to her. And we see Xavier. And Xavier is looking at this book and he is preparing to fly. He's looking at the cords. He's looking at his father's wings. He's looking at the coordinates that were left and the rules that were left. And he says, I'm coming, baby. As we see him looking like he's flying and him seeing what is real light. That is how it ended. You guys. Ooh wee. Ooh wee! How do I feel overall? Overall, The season, like, let's call it what it is. The season was phenomenal. Chef's kiss to all of the individuals who were a part of creating Paradise. The actors were wonderful. The lighting, the music, the way the camera panned at certain angles to make you feel like you were actually in the room rather than watching somebody record the scene. The storyline, the things that were brought up. This could go any way. So let me tell you what I don't want to see in season 2. What I don't want to see in season 2 is an extended point in time where he is away from his children for so long that we're introduced to all these different characters while not still being connected to the kids. I want there to end up being some type of him coming back and bringing her there or something along those lines, but I don't want this to be a thing where they're separated for long periods of time. I still would like to see a lot of the president. I still want them to have flashbacks of him because I think that a lot of us are familiar with seeing the actor who plays Cal Bradford as this guy who just does funny scenes, and it was nice to see him give a different side of things where he gave a little bit of everything. Phenomenal. I would like to see Sinatra, it's going to sound crazy, come out of her coma, because I want something to be revealed about Jane, and I want to know more about Jane. We still don't have Jane's backstory. We still don't know what's in Jane's file. Are there a lot of redactions in her file too? I'm wondering. You guys, let me know what you thought overall about this season. Did you think that it was the librarian? I did not think it was the librarian. I didn't know who it was. I didn't know until we knew. And it's sad because I'm going to want to go back and look at it, but I'm thinking about the message and why he did what he did. And he too doesn't see that he was wrong too, because even to get to Paradise, you trampled on some people, you stepped on some backs to get there. So tell me what you thought, if you were right or not as far as the culprit of all this thing, and what would you like to see for the next season. Thank you guys so much. It's been real. Until next time.